Live. Brilliant. Well, welcome everyone to this virtual council meeting. We're holding it by Zoom today as we're having the technology upgraded in the council chamber. So hopefully we'll have some much better live streaming happening when we're all back in the room. So this meeting is being held virtually and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and council's website. It's being held online and councillors are attending virtually in accordance with Part 5 of the Governance Rule meeting procedures. We adopted our new Governance Rule meeting procedures on the 25th of July 2023, which allows for virtual meetings to occur. I'll start with an acknowledgement of country. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. And now Councillor Eyre will read the Good Governance Pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and the environment of Nillumbik now and in the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll now hand over to Pastor Sam Scott of Hooksbridge Christian Fellowship to read a prayer.
Through the chair, just asking Pastor Scott if he can unmute himself.
Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity that you've given to me once again to pray for the council. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we come before you again tonight and honor you as creator of all things, Lord of the universe. We praise you for your amazing power that made everything we see all around us. We thank you tonight for placing us in this beautiful environment in which we live, a place of outstanding natural beauty. We thank you for the abundance of the nature all around us. We thank you for the relative peace and tranquility that we enjoy in this area, especially in comparison to many places around the world where there's so much strife and war and famine and turmoil. We thank you for our food and our clothing and shelter, and we truly are privileged, but not all of us. In the same breath that we talk about our wonderful environment and the privilege we have, we know that there are many here who in this area are struggling. Some are sleeping rough. Some have been cast out of their homes and have broken relationships. And we pray for them. And we pray for everyone who's trying to help them too. Even the council here and all that they try to do to ease the burden on these people. We pray tonight for every member of this council who have been charged with local government. We just read out what they're charged with. And we pray that you will help them to do everything with diligence and integrity. And we ask that the decisions that are made here tonight in this chamber will be for the good of all the people of the council to one degree or another. Lord, I want to pray also for the individual councillors and their families too, because they're giving up time each month to come and serve. And with whatever they are going through as families, we pray that you will intervene and help them and sustain them. Pray for the staff as well, the CEO and all his staff. Similarly, bless them too and all that they're going through. And we thank you, Lord, that we are protected here by the police force and the CFA and the ambulances and all the people that serve our community. Keep them safe, we pray. We ask all this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Sam. We have no apologies tonight, so I'll move on to declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest, councillors? No conflicts of interest. We'll move on to presentations, and I believe Councillor Egan has a condolence to read out.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a condolence for Beverly Brock OAM. We're deeply saddened to hear of the recent passing of long-time Nillumbik resident Beverly Brock OAM. Bev was a former teacher, life counsellor, an author, a passionate environmentalist and road safety advocate. Bev was also an extremely well-known woman in Australian motorsport, being the former partner of Australian motorsport icon Peter Brock, writing 2 books on his career and their life together before publishing an autobiography of her own. Bev lived a life dedicated to others and was involved with a number of charities, including the Lighthouse Foundation, the Leukemia Foundation and the Brock Foundation, which is aimed at disadvantaged youth and others that experience difficulties. I know she was looking forward to our youth hub opening, so it's a pity that she won't be around for that. She was also a volunteer tutor at the Panton Hill Living and Learning Centre for more than 10 years until December 2001. In 2003, at the Australia Day Awards, Bev was also Citizen of the Year. And she was also awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, in the General Division in 2016 for service to the community through charitable organisations. Over recent years, Bev focused her time and passion on the Skyline Foundation, Melbourne Rotary, public speaking and her ever-expanding family. Our thoughts are with Bev's family and friends.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Moving on, the next item is confirmation of minutes, so I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy. You're on mute, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to recommend that Council confirms the minutes of the Council meeting and the confidential Council meeting held on Tuesday, the 26th of March in 2024. The attachments 1 and 2 go with this motion. And secondly, that we resolve that the confidential Council meeting minutes in Section 2 remain confidential in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan, those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. We have no petitions tonight, but we do have one set of questions from the gallery. We have 2 questions from Stephen Clendenin. Question 1, will this council clearly take a stand against the genocide that is being enacted on the people of Palestine? And question 2, will this council express solidarity with the communities in Nillumbik traumatised by the extreme violence of Israel on the people of Gaza? We also have 2 similar questions from Nina Giuseppe. Question 1, at the 2022 NGA of local councils, a motion in support of Ukraine was unanimously passed by all councils in Australia. If there is a motion submitted at the 2024 NGA in July in support of Palestine, will Nillumbik Council support this? And if not, why not? We have a combined response to those questions, and the response is as follows. This is an international issue and outside of Council's jurisdiction, and therefore Council does not have an official position on the issue. While we acknowledge that these tragic circumstances are on a lot of people's minds, our primary responsibility remains on addressing the needs and concerns of our local community. And that is the response to those questions. The next item is reports of advisory committees. So I will look for a motion, Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation that council notes the minutes of the advisory committee meetings reported in attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan, Councillor Eyre.
Finally, to say thank you to all those who are on our advisory committees, but in particular tonight, the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee and those who champion the cause for our community and our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I'd like to thank all of the advisory committees and especially RTAC, of which I serve. I'm the second chair. Councillor Stockman is the chair of RTAC. They do an amazing job, despite the fact that they can only meet 4 times a year. In fact, it's 4 hours per year, something we need to look at next term, I think. Yes, they get out and meet apart from council, which I think is a great thing considering their time constraints. So well done to RTAC. And it was great to be on some of the trails recently with some of the members or most of the members of RTAC. Great job.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Now we move on to officers' reports, and the first item under officers' report is the Creative Infrastructure Framework. So I will look for a motion.
Happy to
Councillor
move
Payne,
that motion there, Ramtran.
just wait to get that one up on the screen. There we go.
Yes, so happy to move the motion that council.
Sorry, Councillor Payne, I believe there was an alternate motion there. That one.
Is it on the next page or?
Through the chair, this is the motion. The second page will have the additional point once it's read out.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Payne.
So happy to move the motion that Council 1 adopts the Creative Infrastructure Framework as per attachment 1. 2, authorises Director of Communities to make any further minor changes to the framework that may be necessary and are inconsequential in nature. 3, makes the adopted Creative Infrastructure Framework publicly available on Council's website. 4, notes the incorrect date was inadvertently nominated to endorse the Creative Infrastructure Framework at the Planning and Consultation Committee meeting held on the 12th of March 2024. And 5, request officers to make the following changes to the Creative Infrastructure Framework. A, on page 38, under What Does the Evidence Say, add a paragraph referring to the feasibility study from 2019 and mention that 895 Main Road Eltham scored highest in this study. And B, on page 47 at Strategic Direction 19, which currently states, explore options for delivering a purpose-built gallery-grade exhibition space to display the collection and works of established artists. Add at the end of this sentence, and collaborate with groups in the community who share this vision.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, the Creative Arts Infrastructure Framework, or the Creative Infrastructure Framework, was really this council's decision to make the most of the assets that we have when it comes to exhibiting, our arts community, performing, rehearsing and exhibition spaces. We know we don't have dedicated spaces, or many of them, in the Shire, so we really wanted to make the most of what we have. And we asked the arts and culture team to go and find those spaces and bring them back and get consultants to actually show us what we have. They've done that. They've done a great job. And this is really about using what we have and advocating for better infrastructure for the future within our means. We went out to the community, we asked for their input, and I want to thank everyone who has made submissions to the Creative Infrastructure Framework. We've had arts practitioners, enthusiasts, we've had residents who are simply keen to make sure that the Shire maintains its reputation for having a strong arts tradition. And we have particular groups who went above and beyond to really make suggestions about how our arts infrastructure can work. In particular, I want to thank Montsalvat for coming in and showing their support for this. Also, Jim Connor for coming up with a plan for extending the Eltham Community and Reception Centre as having a dedicated art space. And in particular, I wanted to mention the work of the Nillumbik Arts Museum Committee. They're a newish group, but a very strong advocacy group in the community. And really, their work has prompted us to make additions to the Creative Infrastructure Framework to say that the site at 895 Main Road, Eltham, would be the strongest, highest scoring place to have a central art museum or gallery, and that we intend to collaborate with groups in the community who share this vision. So really, they are a group that's advocating for the building of a dedicated arts museum, and our arts and culture team support them in what they do at SOTA Council. And we wish them the best of luck as they do the hard slog of having to find philanthropic donations and other forms of grants in order to make that vision become a reality. So I'd like to thank everyone for the work that they've done and wish those who want to build on the arts infrastructure in Nillumbik the best of luck. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Payne. As the art community know very well, I've been totally supportive of this since day one back in 2016 when I was first elected. I'd like nothing more than to see Nillumbik with a facility that they totally deserve, being one of the leading art councils in Australia. I think there's a Macedon says they're the best, but I think we're the best. This leaves the door open for millions of dollars in donations to one day come through so we can have a purpose built facility in Nillumbik. So I'm more than happy to support this, and we'll continue supporting any options we can get together to have our own art museum, art gallery, whatever you want to call it. And going back even last term, that site was always the preferred site, along with some other facilities on there. So wholeheartedly support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say this is a fantastic framework, and I'm really pleased to see where it's come and to see all the feedback that was received through the consultation and to see that included in this document. I know that we have such a creative community, and so therefore that's even why this framework is even more important to support the broad range of creative modalities that we have in our community. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, and all the different community groups and individuals that will support this and be part of this framework over the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank the 28 formal submitters who provided input into the draft Creative Infrastructure Framework when it was shared with the committee for consultation. We've heard before in the report, it says that the Creative Infrastructure Framework looks to guide council decisions making regarding the delivery and development of creative spaces in Nillumbik over the next 10 years. Looking at the gaps and listening to the community perspectives, there's a strong support for a Nillumbik Regional Art Gallery. And as Councillor Payne mentioned, there is a dedicated group of people that are working hard to see this become a reality. A facility of this nature is a huge endeavour, and it would require significant funding in partnership with all levels of government and philanthropic sources. So it's not something that council could fund on our own. I'm pleased that this framework has provision to enable the progression of ideas and advocacy for a regional art gallery, in addition to exploring smaller creative spaces. So the framework has 28 actions, and the community, I hope those interested will look into the framework and see where it fits for them. There are some short-term actions, 1 to 2 years, medium-term actions, 3 to 5, and long-term actions, which go up to 10 years. And so just to make a couple of points, I'm keen to see Council's facility at Edendale Farm and the Eltham North Community Hall reimagined so they can be utilised more fully by the community, which is covered in the framework as actions 2 and 5, along with maximising opportunities for creative activity in Eltham and Diamond Creek through the structured planning process to support emerging creative industries and the nighttime economy. There are lots of actions in this framework, but one of the other ones that I'm keen here to see is the commissioning of public art to contribute to the public realm and creative placemaking. This is noted as Action 25 in the framework, and there are so many canvas opportunities that are just waiting for creative makeover in Nillumbik, and they provide canvas for artists, enjoyment for the community, and a boost to tourism for our local businesses. Nillumbik is a place of creatives. We've got a rich history of celebrating art in all forms, and we have a current kaleidoscope of people earning a living through creative endeavours. Authors, painters, sculptors, musicians, actors. We know that our community wants to protect and nurture this, and I hope that through this framework, Council can help support the community achieve our shared goals. I'm looking forward to ensuring that Council's extensive art collection can be made more accessible to the community. And I'm also hoping that stronger partnerships with the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung traditional owners and other First Nations people will emerge through this framework. And just lastly, this last weekend and this next weekend coming, between 10 to 5, we have the Nillumbik Open Studios, where 30 local artists in our shire are opening their doors for the public to step into their studios, to watch the artists at work, to view their creations, and to purchase a piece of art. Imagine having these sorts of things happening all the time. So I do endorse the strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. That's in favour. That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Northern Regional Trails Strategy, and so I will look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just waiting for an alternative motion on the screen. Thank you. The recommendation is 1, that Council endorses the Northern Regional Trails Strategy 2022 Attachment 1 and makes the following changes to Attachment 1. A, replaces the illustration on page 51 to show 2 alternative trail options, and they are 1, the Maroondah Aqueduct Trail to follow the southern alignment Corwell Road through Ashmore Road to Yarra Glen below Sugarloaf Reservoir instead of the current illustration showing the trail to the northern alignment above the Sugarloaf Reservoir. And 2, the Maroondah Aqueduct Trail to follow the southern alignment Corwell Road via the Melbourne Water Caretakers Trail to Ashmore Road onto Yarra Glen below Sugarloaf Reservoir instead of the current illustration showing the trail to the northern alignment above the Sugarloaf Reservoir. And there's more. B, removes any reference to Warrandyte Kinglake Road on page 51. C, updates the priority actions on page 51 to reflect the southern alignment of the 2 options listed in point 1 and A. And D, change the wording to priority action 8 on page 39 to remove the words from along the main road to around. 2, notes any future trail construction within Nillumbik to consider land use zones with specific reference to the special use zones.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Nillumbik's actually the last council to sign off on this strategy, and it should have been done years ago. RTAC's been advising the southern MAT route for over 12 years from Corwell Road to Ashmore Road via the Melbourne Water Caretakers Trail, as it's the only path that provides the required flat, safe and all-important inclusive aspects our wider community require us to look for in trails. There's been a lot of misinformation about this trail alignment, so I'll try and dispel a few of them. As far as I know, I'm the only councillor to walk all the options along with RTAC members. The other alignments going north above the dam or in the middle up to the dam are not inclusive and will prevent most users from using them due to steep grades, safety, poor surfacing, not to mention millions of dollars in funding required. There's also traffic on these routes, not conducive to trail users of any description. The southern link mapping following the Maroondah Aqueduct Caretakers Trail starting at Corwell Road brings together the many qualities we embody in the Climate Action Plan, proactively mitigating heavy vegetation and habitat losses required by the other routes from 2011 and 2016 strategy updates seen online, is most welcome and a great champion of climate awareness. Avoiding those old alignments and sparing the ratepayers millions of dollars and years of negotiations on them is yet another reason to thank those involved in bringing the new mapping aboard. Riding an e-bike or a bicycle into Yarra Glen or a bit further to Research or Eltham will become a viable option for many residents. Walking into Yarra Glen will also become a more approachable option on this route. The southern alignment is an off-road existing 13 to 20 metre wide granite sanded siding in some spots, following the historical caretaker's path with gentle gradients as designed by the engineers of old, that is currently excluded from use by a lock gate only. A siding at Ashmore Road, a bitumen section maintained by Melbourne Water to access facilities at the pump house, does require a minor deviation from the alignment, which could be addressed in the future. It provides many historical works along the way. All this connectivity stops with the northern alignment, which contains routes such as Westering Road and its very steep, gravelled and slippery gradients, and the infamous Breakneck Hill, which had windlasses and pulleys for horse-drawn carts and is closed to the public for safety reasons currently. The upcoming Melbourne Water divestment will most likely bring future community growth to the area, a community about to flourish, which will be served well by enabling active transport corridor into Yarra Glen along the only reasonably flat gradient. As a Nillumbik resident, this ticks so many boxes, being an existing 15 to 20 metre turnkey trail that will be ready tomorrow by unlocking the gate, at least up to the bit that's in contention. There's no question on the easy gradient and surface up to the gated section. It ticks every box, brings an inclusive alignment with little to no cost to the Shire. It rises 3.5 centimetres per mile. From the Skyline Roadhouse, it's still a far easier grade and surface than even the old Calwell and Upper Ashmore Road, which is significantly steeper in grade. Trails need to be accessible for the wider community. For all those who think this needs state money, it doesn't. It merely needs the PUZ easement going through and Lees to Bicker area sorted. The rest can be open tomorrow. In February 2017, RTAC was successful in obtaining $8,000 for the very purpose, and now it will get done. The Melbourne Water easement is public use zone, and it's the #1 priority. It's an amazing alignment, plenty of cool sections with treed cover along the aqueduct for people to enjoy. The other alternative down has previously been looked at and dismissed as a poor choice due to the limiting issues. Steep gradients, gated entrance, poor surface qualities at the north end, limited access times due to the Sugarloaf Dam gate closure times, extended distance to travel, traffic issues with roads, loss of historical overlay, and most importantly, requires millions of dollars. That was the Sugarloaf Calwell one was considered initially more as a preferred destination to link to the dam itself, but not as a community connection, connecting towns and trail networks, which only the southern route can for the wider community. So I am supporting the second item in the two alternative routes, as do all the members of RTAC bar one. And I finished with 5 seconds to spare. So I hope my voice lasted, and it has. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say a few brief words. Just to follow on from Councillor Egan, the Northern Regional Trail Strategy is a legacy project that will connect and provide benefits to the people of the North for decades to come. This combined work of the 6 councils here in the North, that being Banyule, Darebin, Marybeck, Hume, Yarra, Whittlesea and Nillumbik, has been underway for many years, with the first strategy endorsed in 2016. This high-level strategy will connect people, places and spaces in a most positive way. Trails have social, health, environmental and economic benefits, and the strategy talks to that. So please, I invite the community to read those points and to look through the paperwork. You know, this new regional trail strategy for 2022, whilst we're 2 years into that, contains priority actions for across the various trails, but importantly for us here in Nillumbik, I'm pleased to see priority actions for the Diamond Creek Trail, the Aqueduct Trail, the Hurstbridge Rail Trail from Greensborough to Eltham, and the Green Wedge Trail. I'd like to speak a bit here about the Diamond Creek Trail, which begins at the Yarra Trail in Eltham Lower and continues for 20 kilometres out to Hurstbridge. What an amazing trail we've got here. That's from a lot of the hard work of the community and, you know, again, the Recreational Trails Advisory Committee. On page 39 of the strategy, the auditor's comments about the Diamond Creek Trail are as follows. It's a reasonably complete trail through some quite scenic areas with a superb view, a superb new extension to Wattle Glen, but marred badly by a gaping hole in Eltham. So, you know, the 13 priority actions are listed in the strategy, and they related to the Diamond Creek Trail, and these really relate to safety and improved user experience. So here at Nillumbik, we're able to manage and improve and advocate for what we do in the Nillumbik section, but as a whole collective of councils, we're wanting to improve the connectivity across all of the council areas. I'd just like to say a few more points here about the Diamond Creek Trail. So whilst these trails are wonderful recreational assets, we need to ensure that they're safe for everyone who uses them. You know, today I was contacted by an Edendale resident who advised me that her husband, when cycling on the Diamond Creek Trail on Saturday near Watkins Street in Diamond Creek, had an accident with a new barrier, and he remains in hospital with a fractured spine at the neck and a broken collarbone, and will be unable to work for the next 3 months while he recuperates. So Wayne, I'd like to send my best wishes to you for a recovery, and I hope that, you know, through this strategy, you know, I'm pleased to see there are priority actions that the community will, you know, enjoy as well that relate to safety. For example, there's the installation of a signalised pedestrian priority crossing at Allendale Road. Action 6 is to maintain and upgrade sections of the Bitchman Trail through Eltham North.
Time, Councillor Duffy, if you could wrap up there.
Oh, yes, sorry, I couldn't see the time, so I've run a bit over time, but just very to succinctly put, the one point that I'd really like to make is the fixing up the alignment of the trail through Eltham is a priority, and we've been able to make a provision for that in the amendment. So
gone over time. I'm going to stop you there. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Stockman, I can see you've got your hand up already.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, first of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Egan for going out and looking at this trail, the Maroondah Aqueduct Trail. It's a big trail, and it goes right from the rural part and into the actual regional parts, which start at Lear Court. And number one on this Northern Regional Trail Strategy is the Aqueduct Trail Stage 1. We've actually done very well to split them up into 2 sections because it is a hard thing to pass through. It's very confusing just on its own, but to split them up is a great thing. But the purpose of the Northern Rail Strategy is to guide future planning and development of regional trails north of Melbourne. The strategy is a culmination of a collaboration between 6 local government areas, and where we're actually linking into Banyule and Whittlesea there at Lear Court, there's 34 kilometres of trails that are part of the North East Link network, so it'll link in very well there. And yeah, that stage 1 part is crucial, going through a very populated area. The endorsement of the strategy will enable strengthened advocacy for regional trails across the Shire. It provides region-wide action items in regards to trail infrastructure, trail management and trail marketing. The priority projects will be the focus of advocacy efforts to seek external funding for trail improvements on a region-wide basis. It's very, very high-level stuff. So members of the Recreational Trails Advisory Committee played an integral role in providing information and feedback to the strategy. The strategy will be used collectively for Nillumbik to build on the existing trail networks. And I just want to concur there with Councillor Duffy that trails have come a long way, and there's some really great mental health to trails, benefits to trails, also to cost of living as well. I think people using transport, in fact, even recreational can almost come off that part of it, because it can be used as a very good form of transport as well. So yeah, I'm really glad. I think hopefully we can get another councillor who will help endorse this Northern Trail Strategy. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to chip in and say, for those watching now trying to work out why we have amended the motion to have 2 separate iterations of the trail, it's because it's a complex area of overlapping ownerships of land use, and we have been informed that the actual sliver of land, the contended sliver of land, is public use zone, but that it runs through land, national park land, that is not meant to have animals. So there's overlapping uses of the land, contested uses of the land. It's triggered debates about who knows the trails better, who uses them more, which trail is the most ready and which does the least environmental damage. So that's why we are hoping smarter minds than ours can actually decide on the final trails when they do get funded, and that we are looking to have something that works for the widest possible use in the community. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I am really excited about this strategy and to note that it's a high-level advocacy document that has been endorsed by the other 5 councils, which I think Councillor Duffy has mentioned. Thank you for clarifying why we have listed the 2 options, Councillor Payne. I think that's important for our community to understand that it's not a something we can just that people with the right skills will certainly navigate that. I wanted to point out that the Aqueduct Trail, which goes right through Swipers Gully Ward and beyond, is heritage listed in a special place in Nillumbik, and I can see that by seeing all of our community walking and cycling along there. So it will be great to be able to join that up for those coming from Melbourne and beyond. And for those not aware, Council is currently in the process of establishing our own Friends of the Aqueduct group, so please reach out if interested. But by having this strategy will allow us to connect Melbourne and the other 5 councils with Nillumbik's trails, and I think that's wonderful. And I know that I love our trails, and I know that most of our community love our trails, so I think this is amazing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to support the motion. Noting is a compromise position. There's been a lot of discussion over the last week or 2 about the Aqueduct Trail, and the contentious part of it is really what's listed in the strategy is a route that uses Westering Road, which actually goes north of the Sugarloaf Reservoir. But really what we understand community wants unanimously is for that trail to be south of the reservoir. Now it gets contentious as to whether or not it's immediately south of the reservoir, basically along the dam wall, or it's a little bit further south where the area is a bit flatter and there's an existing caretaker's track. It appears that, from what I understand, that our RTAC, or the Regional Trails Advisory Committee of Council, have a majority agreement that that southern route, which uses a historic caretaker's track, is the preferred one because it's nice and flat. It's easily accessible. You can basically open the track up quite easily, from what I understand. The issue is that it runs through special use zone, Bend of Isles, on either side of it. The land itself, most of it, the caretaker's track, I understand, is public use zone. So there's not a major ownership problem, but some of the existing track does deviate from that easement, apparently. So there is some work to be done potentially there, but I understand it's a much easier track to navigate than the alignment to the north. So, on the face of it, it sounds like that's the way to go, but there's still work to be done in this space. We need to, fully consider all the pros and cons. So that's why this motion, I think that Councillor Egan has put a compromise position that, okay, we agree there's some more work to be done, but, we just have to get both proposed routes in the strategy, and it's a very high-level document, so we don't actually have to nail it right now. It can be worked on in the future. So I think it's for the benefit of getting the strategy through. It's already 2 years old. It's a 10-year strategy. Really, this work should have been done by council, probably 2 years ago. It's coming to us now, and we've realised in the last few weeks there's more work to be done. And I look forward to having more community engagement. There's 2 sides to every coin. We haven't landed on anything really yet in terms of this very, very small section of the Maroondah Aqueduct Trail, but there's lots and lots of other work that has been done throughout the strategy that is not contentious at all. I think Natalie Duffy's made a very minor amendment proposed, for the Eltham part of the Diamond Creek Trail, which I also support. So, yeah, it's a good motion, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I believe that's all councillors. So I'll speak to this one as well. I won't be supporting the motion, and I think it's a damn shame that our regional trails strategy won't be getting unanimous support from the council. And I think it's also a damn shame that the principal spokesperson for the council is against the strategy. This is something that we should all be excited about. It's something that the whole community should be getting on board with. But what's proposed here in this motion is not that. Anyone who might not know about the communal living that we have here in Nillumbik, we actually do have a fine example of communal living right here in the Nillumbik Shire Council. It's called Round the Bend Conservation Cooperative. They share a very large property in Bend of Islands, in the north of Bend of Islands. It's inhabited by a number of different houses, a number of different families living in those houses. They share the land, they manage the land together. Bend of Islands is covered by the Special Use Zone 2, which is the Environmental Living Zone. In that zone, there are no pets, no fences, no non-native plants. And that's why it is an absolute standout. It has lace monitors, huge lizards as long as your arm span. It has lyrebirds. And quite honestly, it is the jewel in the crown of our Green Wedge here in the Green Wedge Shire. Now, there's a very small section of Public Use Zone 1 running through the co-op in Bend of Islands. It is not public land. Public Use Zone 1 is for utilities. You wouldn't go inside an electric plant, and you wouldn't go inside this public use zone. Melbourne Water have put no entry signs on either end. There's an underground tunnel there that's meant to carry water. It was never meant to be a trail. If a trail goes through there, it would cut the co-op in half. Now, there are no pets or horses in Bend of Islands. That's the whole purpose of the zone. Yet we're proposing a trail that's going to send dog walkers and horse riders straight through it. The trail's going to need to be fenced. There are no fences in Bend of Islands. So we're going to cut the habitat there in half and create a barrier for wildlife passing through the co-op. It completely flies in the face of the purpose and intent of the special use zone. If we pass this motion, we are entertaining the idea of running a trail through this incredibly special site. Councillors, I implore you, support a trail, but leave Bend of Islands alone. Leave the Bend of Islands alone. It's our job to inform ourselves, consider the factors and make a decision, not to leave two options to be decided later when it is this simple. If you're entertaining the idea of having a trail through the middle of the co-op in Bend of Islands, then you either don't understand one of the most significant sites in our municipality or haven't been bothered to inform yourself. Councillors, I implore you, knock this motion back. If you need more time to learn about Bend of Islands, we can defer this. If you understand Bend of Islands, then you'll know how important it is to knock out point A1, and we can go with point A2. It's very doable. The route already exists, and it's a very small detour. Thank you, councillors. I will pass to Councillor Egan for a right of reply.
Thank you, Councillor Rancharan. As Councillor Stockman's already mentioned, there are 10 priority trails. The reason I mentioned the aqueduct is that it is number 1 on the list, and I knew other councillors would pick up the rest of them, so thank you for that. For all of those interested, I'll post pictures and a video of the route preferred by RTAC and myself and the staff and the consultant that was employed to do the route for all those interested. The views are stunning. There are 2 different options, and there's no national park land there at all, Councillor Payne. It's Melbourne Waterland. And also people with the right skills have already been consulted. The consultant engaged by us wanted the second option on the Melbourne Water Caretakers Trail. So NC staff all along for 11 years, as well as the RTAC Trails Advisory Committee. Why bother having a committee if we're not going to take any notice of them? And Councillor Perkins is quite correct. The Mayor is supposed to represent the views of all councillors, Councillor Ramcharan, not just himself. I totally support the comments you've made about the Bend of Isles, except that there are dogs on some properties. We had a big issue, a contentious issue we had to vote on about that, I'm sure you'd remember. And it's the Bend of Isles that have put private road signs on either end of the trail. If you'd walked it, you would know it isn't Melbourne Water. And there are no fences on the rest of the Aqueduct Trail, and there doesn't need to be any near this bit of land. It is so far removed from anything else, and there's an existing trail already there. What's doing... I'll leave it up to the public to decide, because once they see the photos and people actually go on the bit that they can walk on, they'll make up their own minds. So I'll be totally supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I'm going to call a division. Those in favour? Councillor Stockman, Councillor Payne, Councillor Egan, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Perkins, Councillor Eyre. Those against? Councillor Ramcharan, and that is carried. All right, I'll move us on to the next item, which is the proposed draft of the Reconciliation Action Plan, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to move the recommendation that Council endorses the draft Reconciliation Action Plan, attachment 1, to go out for the purpose of community engagement from tomorrow, the 2nd of May to the 26th of May 2024. Invites written submissions on the draft reconciliation plan to Council by the 26th of May, and considers the public submissions at the upcoming Planning and Consultation Committee meeting to be held on the 16th of July in this year. Also, this recommendation endorses the wording change from European to colonial in the long version of Council's current acknowledgement of country, which is attachment 2.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. You know, in Nillumbik, we live, learn, play, study and work on the unceded land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. The Wurundjeri have a connection to this place that spans more than 65,000 years, as most of us know. There are parts in Nillumbik where we can feel a sense of what life may have been like before the traditional ways of the Wurundjeri was interrupted by colonization, my apologies. This year marks 200 years since the birth of Wurundjeri elder William Barrack. William Barrack lived through this time change and became a strong leader and advocate for his people and other First Nations people dispossessed of their land. We love Nillumbik. We choose to live here. In our own way, we're all called to take part in educating ourselves on our shared past and taking action to enable healing as we walk together into the future. At this present time, our state is advancing towards treaty with truth-telling talks happening through the Europe Commission. Nillumbik Shire Council for more than 25 years has made acknowledgements and commitments to Wurundjeri and First Nations people. Last year, we celebrated the actions that have derived from Council's first Reconciliation Advisory Group, which became the Nillumbik Reconciliation Group. Today, we move on from our Reconciliation Charter and bring our draft Reconciliation Action Plan to the community so you can contribute your thoughts on how we here at Nillumbik can work together with Wurundjeri traditional owners and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and our community to forge a better future. The Reconciliation Action Plan marks the next stage in our journey. This type of plan under the Reconciliation Australia framework has a 12-month lifespan, which allows for future plans. It's been developed by the Wurundjeri and the Reconciliation Working Group, which has been led by Uncle Joel Wright. And I'd like to extend a sincere thanks to them and to everyone who's had input into this plan so far. Now, as councillors, we invite the community to provide written submissions so you can share your ideas and suggestions and thoughts as to what you'd like to see in the council's wrap. Please have a look at the document in its draft form with the various suggestions that are being put forward. You use the council website, the participate section, to make known your written submissions. And then please, I would like to extend an invitation to the community to register to speak at the council July PCC meeting so we can hear from you in person. The Woi-wurrung word Wominjoka or Wominjika, as some people call it, means to come with purpose. This word is on our welcome signs around our townships as we move through Nillumbik. This wrap needs to be meaningful, not tokenistic. So I invite the community to come with purpose as we continue our Shire's reconciliation journey, and invite you to, have your say.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so happy that we've finally reached this milestone of having our own Reflect RAP for Nillumbik. It will guide the work of officers, how we interact with our community and how we support our community. So I'd really just like to encourage everyone to please read this draft action plan and submit your feedback. This is a really important plan, too important not to hear from all of our community. And therefore, by receiving that feedback, we'll certainly make sure that we're getting this right. I want to know that by hearing from everyone, we're including everyone, and that's just as important as the RAP itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Pang.
Thank you, Mayor Antran. Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that councillors have been kept out of the process of this RAP plan, and for very good reason. This was created with input from those most qualified to understand the cultural and community implications of the change and the way we deal with the past and work towards a more inclusive future. This is about respect. It's not paying lip service. This is not virtue signalling. This is making an effort to look at our past and our country and ourselves differently. So this will take time and a sensitive approach, but I'm very pleased that we're in a position to actually vote for this and make this real.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the revised terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee and expressions of interest for the new committee, and I will look for a motion.
I'm happy to move that.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation is that Council 1 acknowledges and thanks members of the Economic Development Advisory Committee for their advice and practical contribution to economic and tourism outcomes for the Shire over the term of the committee. 2, endorses the revised terms of reference for the EcoDev Advisory Committee for public exhibition in May 24, seeking expressions of interest for membership nomination to renew the committee by August 24. And 3, instructs officers to report nominations to the Economic Development Advisory Committee to Council for endorsement. And Natalie, you may have to speak to it for me as my voice is disappearing.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor
Thank
Egan.
you. I'll second that for you, Councillor Egan. And just, Councillor Egan, would you like to say something, or would you like me to go?
Just
go
very
first?
briefly, I'm just looking forward to the next committee and hope that they're as good as the current committee, and I'll leave the rest up to you because my voice is going.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank the Economic Development Advisory Committee. These people give up their time, as do other members of the advisory committees that Council has, that we draw expert opinion from to help us with our decision making. I'd really like to call out the people that have been on the current advisory committee: Nicole Stavely, Kiri Romaro, Chanmali Tregabi, I mispronounced your name, I'm terribly sorry, Chanmali, Debbie Marazaz, Ariana Edmonds, Claire Knoll, Katrina Naish, Phil Melendez, George Apted, Craig Usher, and Mira Goval. So, this committee is formed by 14 people, 14 members. So we have people from the Eltham community, the Eltham Chamber of Commerce, the Diamond Creek Traders Association, the Hurstbridge Traders Association, Nillumbik Tourism and Business Association. There's also a youth representative and an agricultural representative. So we're hoping to ensure that when Council's looking at developing our economic strategies and our plans and actions across all of the areas with here in Nillumbik, whether that be tourism, whether it be small business, whether it be agriculture, we have those that are working in this area in mind and informing us. And also one person that I'd like to acknowledge who has recently stepped away from the Economic Development Committee is Simon Lepastier, who was from Eltham College. So, thank you to everybody who's put their hand up and given your time and your expertise. Now it's time for the next iteration of the Economic Advisory Committee, and I would invite people from the community that would like to be able to assist council and our community move ahead, nominate themselves to help us in this area. Coming up, we have the Nillumbik Small Business Week on the 27th to the 31st of May. There are so many different ways that we look to support economic development in the Shire, and I think at this point I'll leave it with that and encourage people to consider putting their hand forward to help council, and just again give a big thank you to those people who've worked with officers on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I look forward to attending the next meeting as the new chair.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the proposed road deviation in part of Simpson Road and Ridge Road, Christmas Hills. And I will look for a motion, Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll recommend as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. I'll look for a seconder, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'll speak very briefly. This is more of a technical planning issue than anything else. It's a bit of a land swap with two big particular bits of alignment in the road, and it's due to the Melbourne Water Corporation selling off all of the land that we all know about. I won't say too much because I can't. I'm sure Councillor Payne can add to what I really would like to say, but I won't be able to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
No, I think Councillor Egan's pretty well summed it up. We are trying to make things better and easier for the Shire, and hopefully this road deviation will do exactly that.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll speak to this one briefly as it is in my ward. Look, all we're doing here is moving a line on a map. We're not actually moving the road. The current situation is that the line on the map where the road is meant to be goes through a bush block, and the road goes through what the map thinks should be effectively residential land. That land is owned by Melbourne Water, and Melbourne Water are getting ready to sell that land. That's a separate process where council's working hard to advocate for a good planning outcome that will protect both the community and the environment in Christmas Hills when that land is sold. But as part of that process, we need to get these lines correct. So we'll be doing a land swap. The land where the road is, which is currently owned by Melbourne Water, that will become council land, and the road will stay where it is. And the land where the road is meant to be, which is currently council land, that will become Melbourne Water land and will remain as it is. So nothing's being changed on the ground. We're just changing the maps. It's very technical and bureaucratic so that everything is compliant. And the best thing is Melbourne Water's paying for all of this, so it comes at no cost to council. So that's all this motion does. We're just enabling that process to move forwards. And with that, I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the parliamentary inquiry into securing the Victorian food supply, and I will look for a motion.
Happy to move the motion, Mayor Rattray. So yes, I'm happy to move the motion that Council 1 adopts the submission to the Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry into securing the Victorian food supply as per Attachment 1, and 2, instruct officers to formally lodge the adopted submission to the Legislative Assembly Environment and Planning Committee by the 1st of May 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne.
Yes, I really just want to thank the work of our planning team, Renee Hearn and Lee Northwood, for the work that they've done in preparing this submission. It really does take into account important aspects of the continuing urban sprawl. It's true that many of us are living on land that fed our grandparents, and that can't keep going on. So this plan really takes that into account. The action plan reaffirms the urban growth boundary and the ongoing protection of the green wedge policy settings, and that's key to this. We know that we can't keep sprawling outwards, and we have to protect our green wedges, and this takes it into account. So I once again want to thank the council officers for their submission and the thorough effort they have gone to make it work, and I commend them on their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy.
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the naming proposal for the Civic Drive precinct, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Stockman.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Stockman.
This report is seeking endorsement to commence a public consultation. I believe it's in line with what the community majority, but let's see what happens at the consultation. But have caught up with a lot of members of the community in Apollo Parkways, and I think they'll be happy that this has gone out for consultation. I would like to say the Civic Drive precinct has artwork completed by Fiona Clark, which is on the Diamond Valley Sports Centre external wall, which is quite good if you ever get down and have a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I think this is a wonderful idea, and having it come from the community makes it even more meaningful. The word Kirrip is Woiwurrung for friend. I think that this is a lovely idea, and I'm very much in favour of ensuring we have places named to acknowledge our First Nations history and current and past. You know, one lesson that I'd like council to learn from is the town of my youth. I grew up in country New South Wales in a town called Bathurst. Bathurst, this year it's 200 years since martial law after the Bathurst War, when the frontier wars were taking place. At that time, there was a leader called Windradine, and he was a warrior and a leader. When I was a child, I would catch the school bus to my family home out on a farm, and we would go through a new suburb called Windradine. I had no idea what Windradine even meant. I just thought it was a name. But here in my lounge room in Eltham, as a 45-year-old woman a few years ago, when I was 45, I watched a documentary and I discovered who Windradine was. He was this Wiradjuri warrior who was really important to the people of that time during the Frontier Wars. So what the Bathurst City Council had done at the time was they'd given a name to a suburb to acknowledge a fantastic man in the history of the town, but the education piece didn't go with it. And so I discovered the importance of that man, you know, all of those years later. So when we have namings like this, it's incumbent on council to help explain and walk the community through the why, so that, you know, they understand what the word and the language means. But more so than that, you know, any link that we can do to help encourage and educate people into understanding more of our Wurundjeri history and the impacts of the past, and the way we can work together for a better future for all, particularly improving the gap for First Nations people, is important. So yeah, thank you to the Friends of Apollo Parkway for putting through this suggestion, and to the Wurundjeri who have worked with council in providing some names and the sign off on this, and over to the community for your feedback and any other suggestions and places that you think we should do this too. Please use this opportunity to inform that through the Reconciliation Action Plan and community engagement that's currently opening tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Duffy, for sharing all of that. I too think it's a wonderful proposal, and that whilst there's nothing wrong with Civic Drive Precinct, I think having a Woiwurrung name such as Kirrip is it's a really wonderful name to have for the precinct. So please submit your feedback on this new name, and well done to all involved in coming up with this name, and for the Wurundjeri elders and the consultation committee on reviewing the names and putting forward this one for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a bit of a different perspective. Of course, I support the name Kirrup and you know, the different areas being broken up. It's all very good. Councillor Stockwell didn't read out the motion, but the entire Civic Drive precinct to be named Kirrup Park. The building within the Civic Drive precinct, which is actually a outdoor performance centre, probably should be called the Kirrup Outdoor Performing Centre, but you know, that can go up to community consultation. The proposal is to call it. Oh no, actually that's the next one. So Kirrup Pavilion is the building within the Civic Drive Precinct Park area. The Outdoor Performance Centre to be named Kirrup Outdoor Performance Space, so that's fine. The playground to be named Kirrup Play Space, and the exercise area to be called Kirrup Recreation Space. Probably for me, the important thing, it goes back a fair way, the importance of naming this place is to protect it from future councils, even from future state government that might want to take the land. The most recent threat was the proposal to put a hospital on the site. That was only 3 or so years ago. We managed to bat that one off with the support of the local community down there, particularly the Friends of Polar Parkways. Prior to that, before I got on council, prior to 2010, there was a plan to sell the whole area off and for subdivision to basically move the Shire offices from their current location over to Eltham. So, you know, that really got up everyone's nose in Apollo Parkways. That was very, very, very contentious. When I got on council, I certainly made it one of my missions to ensure that this land be protected for all time. I grew up in Apollo Parkways. I grew up just a few hundred metres to the south, right through the 70s and 80s. Very important, valuable piece of land for community use. You know, when I got onto council, it was zoned public use zone for local government use. So council could do whatever they wanted with it. I led the charge in, what was it, 2016. I think the report speaks to it, that I moved the motion and had support of the council to actually change the zoning from public use zone to public park and recreation zone. I also flagged that I wanted the site to be named. I always sort of thought Eltham's fairly well protected, not only by its tree canopy in terms of being protected from subdivision, it had its parks named. You know, say Alison Knox Park. No one would ever consider putting a hospital on Alison Knox Park or selling that park for subdivision because it was zoned the right way. And also it was named. So, you know, Kirrup's a great name, but more importantly, naming this park will protect it into the future, and that public open space should be there forever. Thank you very much. Happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the March quarter financial report. For a motion, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Antran. Yes, I move the motion that council receives and notes the financial report for the period ended 31st of March 2024 as per attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre, Councillor Payne.
So through the chair, sorry, before we move, I think we've missed an item on the agenda.
Oh, we have to. Thank you, Barbara. I will finish this item first and we'll jump back to that one.
So we just need to procedural motion on that. We've actually put a motion on the table. So you're saying you want to conclude this item before moving to the item that we've missed on the agenda?
Is that okay to do?
Yes, because we have to conclude an item, especially if it's being moved and seconded. We have to finalise this item before we move on.
Absolutely. So we'll finish this one and then we'll move on to the other one. Councillor Payne.
Yes, I'm a little terrified now, but all I wanted to say was I am moving the motion, and council's overall position financially is sound. So I'd like to thank the officers Vince Lombardi and Malika Secunda for all the work they do.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Hay.
No, thank you.
Any other councillors? Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. And yes, my apologies for missing one item. They both begin with the word naming. So I think I just skipped over that thinking it was the same item. So we'll move back to item 37/24, naming rights agreement with Community Bank Stadium. I'll look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. I'll move that Council 1 authorises Chief Operating Officer to finalise and execute the new agreement with Valley Community Financial Services Limited that will expire 10 years from the commencement date. And 2, resolves that the naming rights agreement, Community Bank Stadium as per attachment 1, remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of confidential information in section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
All right, so this is extending a naming rights agreement that council has had for over 10 years. I'll go back to a little bit of history. I got on council 2010. It was around about the time that we were just finalising the contract to build Community Bank Stadium. So it was actually opened on 10th of February 2012. Barry Henwood was the chairman of the VCFSL, Valley Community Financial Services, and that business was very, very important. Community business was very, very important in securing the funding we needed to open the building. There were really 4 partners, fair to say. Federal government provided a great deal of money. Council contributed its fair share, which is probably the majority. State government provided land, and Bendigo Bank jumped in with $75,000 or $750,000, $750,000 for a 10-year naming rights agreement. And those payments finished by June 2013. So within a couple of years, due to the naming rights, Valley Community Financial Service provided $750,000, a huge amount of money. So, it's been a very lucrative arrangement that council has had. The ongoing arrangement isn't going to deliver as much money directly to council funds, but we do know that Bendigo Bank and Valley Community Financial Services Limited are a great supporter of many, many community organisations right across Nillumbik, and indeed they're helping with the funding of the Hurstbridge Men's Shed. So this is a great outcome, and just want to shout out to the board and Barry Henwood and all on Valley. It's a bit of a mouthful, I think. I'm used to saying Bendigo Bank, but it's not Bendigo Bank. It is the Valley Community Financial Services Limited. So very, very happy to endorse extending their agreement for another 10 years. And I think it's been a great partnership that we've had with them, and hope it continues into the future. And I'm sure they'll continue to support community and voluntary community groups throughout Nillumbik as they always have. It's probably been the best partnership that council's ever had. Just quoting Barry Henwood back from their Valley Visions newsletter in summer 2013, Barry said, I understand that this is the single biggest infrastructure project undertaken by the Nillumbik Shire Council, and I would expect it to be one of the biggest project partnerships ever undertaken by the Community Bank network nationwide. It really does demonstrate the sky's the limit when a community decides to make things happen for themselves. I want to congratulate all those grassroots local people who started the project and now seeing it come to fruition. So, Barry's ongoing work for many, many years, we're still we're all the benefactors of that. And I think Barry and the former board and the current board of Financial Services, Valley Financial Services, we really do owe them a great debt of gratitude. I'm very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan.
We haven't seen each other, Ben, so I don't know where you lost your voice from, but it wasn't me.
It's too much talking.
More than happy to support Councillor Perkins on this. It's great to hear the history that he's been able to tell everybody tonight. And Barry is actually He's a bit of a mover and a shaker. He's done so much for this shire over the years and continues to do so. So more than happy to recommend this. They deserve 20, if not 30 years naming rights as far as I'm concerned. The entire community benefits from this, especially at those out in my ward and in the rural areas, because it's the closest stadium to my ward. So more than happy to support everything that the Bendigo Bank does for us.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that one. Oh, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I will be supporting the motion. I acknowledge and recognise the financial and contribution that Bendigo Bank as community bank here in Nillumbik provides to local community endeavours, sports groups, schools, council projects. I remember them doing $1 matching for the Eltham North Adventure Playground. When that burnt down, the community was able to contribute, and the bank was offering to match every dollar the community raised. They were going to match as well up to a certain figure. What this naming has brought to my attention is just, how do we go about naming places in Nillumbik? What's our policy? Do we have a place naming strategy? And I don't believe that we do. And why this has come more so to my attention is that it makes me think of all of the other places that we have in the Shire that would be suitable to have a name to reflect, a value or a person or a woman or a First Nations person. So I had the great privilege of attending the Australian Local Government Women's Association conference on the weekend, along with Councillor Eyre and Councillor Egan. There were female councillors from around the state that were gathered at Warragul and hosted by Baw Baw Shire Council. And one of the things that Baw Baw Shire Council had informed us, and with one of the guest speakers, they were talking about place naming. And Baw Baw Council have recently done just that. They've got a place naming strategy that they had passed, and they were really looking to honour women in the naming of places within the Shire, because so few places historically have been named after women. And with the naming of this stadium, it's made me reflect on, well, I don't actually know of any places within Nillumbik that are named after a woman. There are very few places that have an Aboriginal acknowledgement as well. There's Barrack Bushlands, there's Marngrook Oval, but this whole looking at, what do we call things? What are our places? How do we acknowledge what's important to us? Is something that I would like to see council do a little bit more investigation on. And, I do concur with what you're saying there, Councillor Perkins, about the contribution that this particular business has made to our community. And there's often A-frames that you can see as you walk down the streets, particularly in Eltham and Diamond Creek, where they're indicating the millions of dollars that they've donated to local projects. And, I think that that's close to $9 million at this stage, give or take. I remember looking at the figure last year and being quite, excited and proud of the organisation for what they do for locals.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. And the next item is the instrument of appointment and authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act. I will look for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
That council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by S147(4) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, resolves that A, the Nillumbik Shire Council staff referred to in the instrument of appointment and authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987 in attachment 1, be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. B, the common seal of council be affixed to the instrument. And C, the instrument comes into force immediately after the common seal of council is affixed to the instrument and remains in force until council determines to vary or revoke it.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor.
Thank you. I feel like I should know this by heart, as I think it's come up at the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 council meetings since last year. On this occasion, as per all of the others, we have a new staff member that needs to be authorised. So an instrument of authorisation is required to be endorsed by council in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, meaning that council must appoint authorised officers for the purposes of enforcing and administering the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Duffy.
No, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the tender report for consulting arborist services in parks and open spaces, and I will for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, thank you. The motion is about awarding a panel contract for consulting arborist services, parks and open space. And just reading through the report, it's amazing how many trees and how much arborist work does go on in Nillumbik. There's 4 different service categories as part of the contract. There's customer service inspections, there's firefighting, water tanks, hazardous trees and priority roads, high use sites level 1 and level 2. So the contract terms, initial period of 3 years with a 3-year option to extend the contract, and the total duration of the contract, including the exercise of any options, shall not exceed 3 years. So just some of the details. Tree inspections. Nillumbik Council receives over 2,500 requests per year for tree inspections from members of the public or staff concerned with the risk associated with individual groups of trees. About 55% of these requests are categorised as urgent, or do not require inspection, which are actioned immediately. As a guide, as approximately 55% of these requests are categorised as not urgent or do not require inspection, which are actioned immediately. So as a guide, in the last 6 months, Council received about 3.5 non-urgent requests every day. In terms of firefighting water tanks, this work is done once every 3 years, and the primary purpose is to undertake tree assessments of trees surrounding each of Council's 56 firefighting water tanks. So there's 55 water tanks across the Shire. Hazardous trees on priority roads. Council's got about 200 kilometres of roadsides per year that tree assessments identify and record tree details. The area of potential impacts that are assessed is limited to the tree or part of the tree likely to fall on the road or crossover, and the impact of road users and their ability to use the road for access and egress. There's also high use site tree inspections. That program incorporates the assessment of the health and condition of the trees throughout 130 sites across the Shire. So within those 130 sites, there are 200 individual areas with different risk zone categories. So they tend to be, playgrounds, places of assembly where people are likely to gather and congregate. So depending on the risk zone category of this site, the trees will either be inspected annually or biannually. And there's 2 levels of assessment. Level 1 is a reassessment of trees that have previously been assessed and recorded. And level 2 is initial assessment and establishment of records for trees that have not been previously assessed. So, this contract's a fairly big one for council because, the Greenwich Shires, you expect we have lots of trees, and trees can pose a hazard if they're not managed properly. So that's what this contract is about. The motion also sort of indicates that I can name the tenderer once we vote on it, but the details are actually, no, it says that, I can name the tenderer, but the financial details remain confidential. So hopefully soon I'll be able to name the preferred tenderer.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. I think you'll, and I know this is my time, but I think you'll be relieved by the end of this meeting with your voice being so croaky. I can't really add much to what Councillor Perkins has talked about. I feel he's covered it quite well. But what I can say is that we love our trees in Nillumbik, and that I can't wait to get the feedback from our urban tree strategy or urban tree canopy strategy from the consultation. So looking forward to hearing that and looking forward to endorsing the consultant in this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. In awarding the tender, council officers go through a robust process to assess each application, each tender that comes through. And so, you know, they provide that information to us to help us make with decision making. Makes it very easy to see the process is transparent and fair. And, you know, other factors that are looked at in addition to pricing, you know, the capability, the quality and technical capability of the company, their resources, looking at collaborative approach, and the economic and social sustainability factors. So there's a lot that our procurement team and the relevant officers look at when they're identifying who should be awarded the tender. What was most important to me was ensuring that there would be no negative impact on council officers in terms of job losses with this awarding of tender as well. And that's where we've been given confirmation from officers that that's not the case, that this is a complementary to the staff that we currently have in our team. So I'd just like to make that comment.
Thank you.
And to thank the officers that were involved in the process of getting us to this point, and their names are outlined in the report. So thank you, Councillor Perkins, for outlining the details of what it means to be doing this work for council with all the tree services, etc., that are involved in this tender.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously, and I believe Councillor Perkins can now name the preferred tenderer.
Sorry, it was split in two. So two tenderers. The first one, undertake customer request inspections in high use sites level 1 and level 2, and that goes to Ironbark Environmental Arboriculture Proprietary Limited. And the second one is for firefighting water tanks and hazardous trees on priority roads, and that's CNR Ryder Consulting.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. The next item is informal meetings of councillors' records, and I'll look for a motion. Look for someone to move that one. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. That council, in accordance with item 20 of council's governance rule, meeting procedures, receives the informal meetings of councillors' records, attachment 1, for the meetings held.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eyre.
No, I don't need to speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Duffy.
I don't need to either. Thank you.
Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. There are no notices of motion, no delegates' reports, no supplementary or urgent business, and no confidential reports. And so before my voice conks out completely for the night, I'll declare the meeting closed at 8:30 PM. Thanks, everybody.